This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on response for LIC, IPO and the message. The participants are Puneet Jain, Economic Analyst, and Sonu Sood, AIR Correspondent.
The largest ever IPO of Indian capital markets, the LIC mega IPO of rupees 21,000 crore opened on May 4 and on its closing day yesterday, it received nearly 3 times oversubscription. For 16.2 crore shares on offer, bids were received for 47.83 crore shares. Puneetji, to start our discussion, can you tell us how you see this performance of the much-awaited LIC IPO?
Sonu, you're right. LIC IPO was a very important event from Indian capital market point of view and Indian economy, I think, because LIC is among the most reputed and most highly regarded companies in the country. Not only in the country, in fact, it is one of the most highly regarded companies in the world. And everybody wanted to see how the markets respond to it, what kind of valuation it attracts. And I think the response has been very good. Given the fact that markets are really in a tight spot worldwide, markets are not doing well right now, investor sentiment is down because of a variety of reasons. And in spite of it, LIC's IPO has received a very good response, and it is at 21,000 crores, the largest ever IPO in the history of India. I think it's a very bold move to come with an IPO of that size right now. And on top of it, it received good response. And particularly, what I would like to really underline is that a retail response has been phenomenal. It is the retail investors, the policyholders, the retail investors, the Indian investors who have really participated more than the institutions. I think they have shown the confidence in investing in it.
Puneetji, initially the government planned to sell 5% ownership in LIC through this IPO. Looking at the uncertain global economic environment, as you just pointed out, this was scaled down to 3.5% sale, and the government went ahead with the IPO. Looking at the response, do you feel it was the right decision by the government, which will instill confidence among investors?
I think it was, in fact, I would say it's a very smart decision. See, we could have tried to score new points by saying that we have come out with a larger IPO or something. But I think the government did 2 important things. One is they right-sized the issue. They said, okay, we don't want to sell a very large chunk right now. We will start by selling 3.5% equity. And for that also, they have priced the issue very attractively. In fact, by global standards, the issue was really priced very attractively for investors. I think the strategy is to invite small investors, retail investors to put the money in to reap the benefits over the next 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, and then probably government will be in a position to slowly disinvest a little bit more. So I think it is the right way to do. We could have gone for a larger chunk and caused a lot of disruption, and then the market would not have been able to take it easily. So I think it is a very smart move. Both things. One, the size was right. Secondly, I think the pricing was so attractive that retail investors will benefit from it, and therefore I think it's a good thing in the long term.
So as you said, the pricing was a major focus of the government while designing this IPO. What probability do you see of a strong listing of the stock on May 17? Of course, given that there are a lot of uncertainties in the global economic environment, is this a stock which will be good to retain as a long-term investment?
It's very difficult to guess right now. Given the fact, in normal course, I would have said it would have listed at a very good premium. But of course, the investor sentiment right now is very disrupted, and therefore, we do not know what kind of listing will happen. But definitely, I'm expecting some modest premium at the time of listing. But more than that, I think it is the fact that long-term value of LIC is much more. In fact, LIC's embedded value is roughly 5.4 lakh crore, and government has priced it at the market capitalization at the issue price at 6 lakh crores. That is, they are asking for 1.1 times of the EV. Usually in the world, most insurance companies are priced at 3 to 4 times of the EV. So you can imagine, for long-term investors, potentially this price can go up by more than 100% in next maybe 1 or 2 years. So there is a very good prospect for long-term investors. And my own sense is that retail investors will continue to hold the stock. They will not sell at a small premium. And in fact, new long-term investors will enter the market once it gets listed.
What would be your definition in this context of the term long-term?
I think the true, if you look at, because the insurance business is very, where you sell policies for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So by nature, this business is a long-term business where the returns come over a period of time. Of course, LIC is a 65-year-old institution. So already it has done very well. It manages more than 40 lakh crore of assets of money on behalf of public. So it's a very big company. And my own sense is that the true value to be realized, the real potential profits to be realized, investors should hold for at least 3 to 5 5 years. And I think that then the gains will be very substantial for all investors.
If we talk about this IPO, of course, you have touched upon this, that the domestic investors have shown a great interest, in fact, the domestic individual investors. But can you tell us in slight more detail, how do you see the comparative response of the various investor categories like LIC policyholders, LIC employees, retail individual investors, and of course, qualified institutional buyers?
So you can say that there were 4 categories of investors that the IPO had invited applications from. So one was the policyholders of LIC. Now there are 30 crore policyholders of LIC in India. So all these people have been doing business with LIC for many years. So they were one category and they were offered a certain discount. 65 rupees per share was the discount offered to policyholders. Then there are employees of LIC. That was the second category. The third category was the general retail investors, people who are not neither policyholders nor employees, but general investors in the country. They were offered, employees and general investors were offered a discount of 45 rupees per share. And then there are qualified institutional buyers, which can be FIIs or mutual funds. Usually, whenever an IPO comes, we see that the institutions are largest investors and they put in a lot of money and they are usually the biggest investors.
So do you feel that many LIC policyholders might be first-time investors in the market, and that this IPO of, as you said, one of the most reputed and trusted companies of not only India but the world could further enhance credibility and raise the stock of Indian capital markets?
So, interestingly, LIC is also synonymous with safety. So, when you look at capital markets, people are slightly wary of the risks of investing in the capital market. But if they want to make safe investments in their life, they will buy an insurance policy of LIC. This is how we have grown up also, no? For generations, that has been the way India has worked. So, when LIC offers its shares, I think people have a lot more confidence investing in, even people who have averse to risk, who do not want to take risk. They feel confident they can put their money in LIC and they can give the money to LIC and that money will be safely handled. So my own sense is that yes, LIC not only would have a traditional stock market investor, a lot of people who have not invested, who are first-time investors, who want safety.
So many new demat accounts were opened due to the LIC IPO. In fact, we were seeing a lot of ads. The banks were approaching customers that in case you want to go in for this IPO, you can open a demat account. So you feel that this will help deepen the stock market participation and further strengthen the retail investor segment, which has been the mainstay of the Indian stock market since the pandemic struck.
Yeah, absolutely. I think whenever very large companies, they come to the market, they have two kinds of effects. One is that they increase the investable pool for investors. And that is what all investors want. They don't want to be putting the money only behind a few companies and then it becomes very expensive for them. Larger companies coming to the market, I think it deepens the capital markets. Also, we must remember that Government of India is trying to further its goal of financial inclusion. They want more people to come to the market, but they don't want them to be carrying a lot of risk.
Have people from all over the country participated in this IPO? As you said, LIC is, a product which has been revered, I would say, by the common man, by everybody, because it was the insurance product which was available. So did the emotional connect of LIC with almost everyone play a role in broad-based participation from tier 2, tier 3 cities, as we have been hearing? And do you think this will also be very crucial for broadening the investor base for the stock markets?
LIC is known in every nook and corner of the country. LIC has nearly 30 crore policies. I mean, you can imagine 30 crore policies in India means practically every family in India is touched by LIC in some form or the other, because there would be about 30 to 40 crore households in India. And we have that many policies. And across the length and breadth of India, we know that people would have participated. Although that data has still not come out. That data will come out on 12th when allotment takes place, when we will know what kind of applications came from which part of the country. But my own sense is that the whole country would have participated. And one indicator in that direction is the fact that, like I said earlier, policyholders' portion was oversubscribed by 6 times, the largest subscription. So clearly it is the policyholders which are spread across India who have been the main bulwark in this IPO.
And what is the significance of this IPO for government's disinvestment drive for the current financial year? Will the success of LIC IPO smoothen the journey of other IPOs of government companies and give a fillip to disinvestment? You feel that this might help us meet the disinvestment target for this current financial year?
So like we all know that government's disinvestment program has been slightly performing below the targets. Last year also we could not meet the disinvestment targets for a variety of reasons. Not just Government policy is just basically the environment, the economic environment in which the world is working. So I think LIC's IPO is very important in giving wings to this program. And going forward, yes, there are large number of issues which are planned. The government wants to disinvest certain companies. It wants to come out with IPOs in many companies. Of course, LIC IPO is the king of all IPOs because LIC, like I said, is one of the largest public companies in the country. It was closely held, 100% owned by Government of India. Now government has kicked off the process of disinvesting partly through IPO, which is 3.5%. I'm sure in the next few years, government would like to further dilute its holding by at least another 5 to 10%. But I think that will take time. That may take 2-3 years, depending on how the valuations work out, how the markets take it up. But yes, I think it becomes an important template for all large government companies to plan their IPOs.
And which are the companies which are in line, which you feel can benefit from this experience of the government in terms of valuation, in terms of the scaling of the IPO, which can benefit the other companies to have successful IPOs?
So, Sonu, this has been a speculation in financial circles that will LIC IPO lead to some kind of an IPO in future for Indian Railways, because that is another government enterprise which is huge again, and it connects with everybody in the country, and it has enormous value. Of course, it has many subsidiaries which have been listed. For example, Indian Railway Finance Corporation, IRCON, there are several in IRCTC, all these companies got listed. But Indian Railways as a business entity, that is something which again will be a blockbuster event for Indian capital markets. The markets have been waiting for it in some form. I think LIC IPO will set some kind of a pattern for government to start thinking about a potential IPO for companies like Indian Railways.
And just to put things in perspective, how does the LIC mega IPO, the biggest so far in India, compare with other big Indian IPOs in scale and size?
So, like I said, LIC IPO is the largest ever IPO in the history of India, roughly 21,000 crores that they raised. The second largest IPO came recently, which was the Paytm, which raised about 18,500 crores. It's a private company, did not do very well, in fact. That IPO price has gone down, the stock price has gone down. The third largest IPO was actually Coal India. Again, Government of India enterprise. That issue came in 2010, and they had raised 15,000 crore rupees. So 2010, Coal India raised 15,000, and now LIC has raised 21,000 crore. And before that, in 2008, the fourth largest was actually Reliance Power in 2008, which has raised about 11,000 crores. So you can imagine that in scale and size, LIC is by far the largest right now. And this is, again, like I said, LIC probably will float further in next 2-3 years. So if you really compare it with other major IPOs, this is clearly among the very, very large IPOs.
As you said, the shares will be allotted on May 12. So for the investors, what is the way in which they can check whether the shares have been allotted to them or not? Because as we know that nearly 3 times oversubscription has taken place.
You're right, Sonu. So investors, there are 2 ways. One, of course, is if the shares are allotted to them before 17th, that is on 16th, for those who have been allotted shares, they will receive the shares in the demat account. So that is one way of finding out on 16th that whether they have received the shares, they will know the allotment has come. There is another way that they can do before 16th also, that is after 12th. They can go to the Bombay Stock Exchange site, bsc.com. In the bsc.com site, there is a segment called Investor Services. So if they go to Investor Services, there they can input the application number and the PAN number, and they will come to know whether the shares and how many shares have been allotted and whether they have got any allotment or not. So you can do it through the site of the Bombay Stock Exchange. Also, the registrar of the issue, KFinTech Services, you can go to their site also, and there also you can find out whether allotment has been made based on an application number.
Punitji, thank you so much for shedding light on various aspects of this most awaited and gigantic IPO to hit the Indian stock markets.
Thank you, Sonu, so much.
You were listening to a discussion on response for LIC, IPO and the message. The participants were Puneet Jain, Economic Analyst, and Sonu Sood, AIR Correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on a mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.